This is Power Talk 1210. The power to think for yourself on KVT AM 1210, Sahuarita, Tucson.
Folks, welcome back inside the Parisi Palace, 2919 East Broadway. This is hour number 2 of the Jake Feinberg Show. Thank you so much for making us part of your day wherever you are in the great world. To lose yourself or see yourself from the outside looking in, not worried about being micromanaged, playing free and escaping whatever's going on in your life. How hard is that? It can be very, unless you consistently surround yourself with people who never put themselves above the music. Learning to converse improvisationally and going off into space is not something every musician can contribute all the time. My guest is an example of a musician who does it most of the time. Just ask Pharoah Sanders or the timeless Tisziji Munoz. What my guest has in common with these masters is that he feels completely at peace when he's playing. He might be churning out patterns of hyperbolic rhythms, but he is in his yogic state. Even with the physical movements of his arms and legs and the feet, he is sleeping. He is at peace. Life is not always peaceful, especially if you're a professional musician. You have to know your instrument, hone your sound, be a leader and a teammate at the same time, and find places to play that believe in the profession of music. That it's not a pay-to-play game. That music is to be felt and is not for pacification. That you need to burn and go beyond the atmosphere because we'll be leaving this planet for other worlds. The harmony of the underworld, being friends with the devil and realizing the devil is just all right with me. Playing music of the soul is not for the faint of heart, and my guest is still working on his own individual growth. He is not content with being static. He knows if you don't swing the band and stay warm, you might get frostbite in those cold Canadian winters. Franklyn Kiermyer, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thanks, Jake. I'm really glad to be here with you.
Me too, brother, man. I mean, it has been a long time coming, man. And what time is it where you're at? Where are you and what time is it at right now?
Right now I'm in Oslo, Norway, and it's 8 minutes past 10 in the evening.
Oh, that's not too bad. I thought it was like something like that's good. Okay, so we can you'll be maybe going to bed after this, or getting a nightcap in, you know?
Yeah, I have some hours ahead of me. I'm feeling pretty chipper.
Tell me about did you meet Tisziji Munoz in Canada? When was the first time you crossed paths with him?
Well, I first met Tisziji, I think, upstate New York, where he lives, or close by, some years ago. I haven't lived in Canada in a long time. My folks are still there in Montreal, where I'm from, and my brother and niece and nephew, and so on and so forth. But I haven't lived there, so I met Tisziji not too far from there, actually, where he lives up the Hudson. And I had known about him for some time and actually sought him out because the power of his conviction in his playing, and I felt that there was a good chance that there'd be a strong hookup. So I try to take opportunities like that when I encounter them, finding players that I can go further with.
Use the word conviction. Can you talk to my audience about what that means to you in the musical context?
Well, excuse me. Faith is a word that comes to mind. I think that's probably the most important element in what makes the great music I've heard so great. That the musicians have a faith, their own faith in the power of letting go in the moment, really trusting that openness. And I've encountered that in all kinds of music. Real simple music, real complicated music. It's about the individuals, and Tisziji is certainly one of those people that embodies that faith, the guys I grew up listening to, whether it was when I was a really young kid listening to, my father's records of New Orleans music and swing music and some of the big bands and stuff, the stuff that I was really, really attracted to, music I've heard from around the world, spiritual music, all kinds of stuff. The one element that it all has in common, I found after trying to understand how it all works, is the profound faith of the performers, of the musicians themselves. That was the one key element that bound them all together. And I don't mean a faith in some philosophy or some kind of external force. I mean the faith in the power of resting in that openness, in the center of your, well, some people call it soul, I guess.
Yeah, no, this is the crux of the Jake Feinberg Show, and this is why it's such an honor to have you on the program. And you say faith in each other. I read somewhere about you getting off on Train's later period, his music that he was channeling at that time. Did you ever get to see John Coltrane live? No. I was pretty young when he passed on in 1967, and I encountered his music, I suppose, when I was 14 or 15 years old. I was already that old before I really, really heard that stuff. And the first stuff that I was turned on to was from that period of his music that you're talking about, 1965, let's say, and which was the last year of that band was together. John Coltrane on saxophones and McCoy Tyner on piano and Elvin Jones on drums and Jimmy Garrison on bass. And gosh, I wish that I had heard him live. Well, let's talk about it. I mean, more to the point is that as a drummer, what did you see? I mean, I think what's so cool is the trust that they all had in each other, insofar as they, like Elvin Jones. I mean, you look at a guy like that, and he's playing time, he's playing his own sort of rhythms as well, and so you got to meet Elvin. Did you get a chance to hang with him or see him play?
Yeah, I got a chance to see him play a bunch of times, and I spoke with him a few times, somewhat bashfully, but certainly with a lot of joy. And and like I suppose anybody will tell you, he certainly had a presence, and a lot of that presence was, I guess some people could call it confidence, but I think that's kind of has the connotation, a kind of surface connotation. He had a kind of faith about him, in just kind of being. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what you're referring to when you talk about what you can hear in the music of that quartet, the trust in each other. I think that trust in each other fundamentally comes from a trust in themselves, and a giving themselves over to that experience together.
I also was going to make the point that the faith in each other comes from playing a lot together on the bandstand, but the track that we opened up with was a piece that you were doing with Benito Gonzalez on piano, Junie Booth, and Azar Lawrence, and how often did you really work with them? Because that music just ascends. I mean, it goes off, but yet that doesn't go to my point of saying you need to have a lot of work as a unit. I don't think so. Can you talk about how you linked with those guys, how much you play with them, and how you develop that faith without playing all the time?
Together, yeah. Well, I think it's a really great question. It's a question that holds a lot of interest for me. That study that you're talking about. How does this music work? How the feeling of music really happen? And it's at the risk of sounding kind of like esoteric. I mean, it really is magic.
Right.
There's something, if you talk to a lot of musicians who've spent their lives trying to play music and trying to get better and better at it, often people say, well, when it really gets happening, it's kind of like you're not there anymore, or everybody's kind of playing the same song without any second guessing, and all these kind of things that speak of, what we were saying, of being in the moment. I think that there's an opportunity, like I was saying earlier about Tisziji, there's an opportunity when you get together with people that have devoted their lives to that experience, or devoted their lives to making music in that way. There's an opportunity that the music could really transcend the mundane obstacles that are, often in our way, whether it's lugging an instrument from here to there, or missing a train or plane, or, all the normal things, or being self-conscious, or
right, of course, no, this is perfect,
or stubbing your toe in the morning. It's bringing together people who've really devoted themselves to giving it over, giving up, giving, opening up, and most of, I've never done a study, I don't think anybody ever has, I'd be fascinated to read it, but it seems to me that most of these, wonderful musicians have spent a huge amount of time developing as individuals, developing on their instrument, developing, their heart, opening up. And that's really a huge part of what they're bringing to the situation. The experience of bringing that to situations over and over and over again with different people and with the same people many times, that's an incredible, invaluable part of this. But I think the time that all these musicians have spent alone, really trying to go deep as individuals, I wonder if that's not kind of the most important element in all this. So in the case of this band,
mm-hmm.
and the music that you played,
mm-hmm.
which is from a record that we did called Further, that came out in 2014, we had different histories together. I had known Junie Booth, the bass player, for many, many years, and we had worked on a few different things together over the years.
What did you work on with him? What did you work on with him? What did you work on with him?
We did an early recording I did with Carter Jefferson, the saxophone player that passed on years ago.
Oh, man. Are you kidding? Where is this?
Really?
I need this immediately.
Yeah, that's not out there. That's one of the things, one of the exploratory things I did when I was very young, and I started off putting together projects and trying to develop that way, and basically that's how I've continued. Love it. Can you hear me?
Yeah, no, I love it. I was going to ask you, you're telling me that never got out on a record, though?
No.
Continue.
And yeah, so a variety of things. And Azar Lawrence, legendary saxophone player, I began listening to Azar in the McCoy Tyner Band records from the early 70s when I was a teenager. My one sibling, my older brother Lawrence, had all those records, and so we were listening to that stuff. We really loved that McCoy Tyner Band, and Junie was in that too, by the way. And
that's right.
And so I had heard Azar for years and years, and always identified him as one of the strongest saxophone players, and somebody that I always wanted to work with, but hadn't. And Benito Gonzalez, the piano player, I had heard him with the Kenny Garrett Band.
Sure.
And the saxophone player Kenny Garrett, and again identified a strength in his playing and a conviction that I thought, wow, that's something that I'd really like to get together with and see what happens. And so this band was brought together based on those experiences. We had never played together before, and this was an opportunity we were all interested in taking steps towards realizing, and the opportunity came together. The causes and conditions came together in a way where we could get together and work on this music and record it. And that was the beginning of this ensemble, this unit.
Franklyn, I wanted to ask you, without getting into personal experiences, no, I mean with other people or airing that kind of stuff. I mean, for me, part of getting to that source of openness and conviction, faith, is also just overcoming adversity. Reaching the bottom of the pit. And I know that Azar and Junie definitely have been humbled like that. I think part of it is just the human the person actually understanding that they are totally not in a negative way, but that they've been humbled, and then their heart is open to really engaging a group or becoming that kind of humanistic person where, like I said, the music is always above them. Ultimately, that's how it would transcend. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on, if you wanted to share with the audience some adversity you faced in your life, and then ultimately how music helped you overcome it.
First of all, I think you're absolutely right on with what you're saying. I first of all, I don't think there's any way to. It's the truth that there's no way to avoid adversity.
Right.
As much as we'd like to pretend that we can, or as much as we'd like to try. Secondly, I think that experiencing adversity, kind of like opening up to it instead of trying to run away from it, is the key to growth. That's what I think, what I experience. Certainly, everybody in my life that I've gotten close with, where we've shared experiences and talked about what we've gone through, people have gone through a lot of stuff to get deep.
Right.
It's funny, we're talking about this band and Junie Booth, the great bass player, and we were interviewed to do a promo video for this last album, and the editors chose a clip of one of the clips in the video is Junie saying, something like, people have given their blood and their time and their lives and their souls to try to get deep in this music, and we don't have the time to go into Junie's history.
No.
But when Junie was a teenager, he was in Art Blakey's Jazz Messengers. That's where it started, or maybe even before. He played with everybody from McCoy Tyner to Tony Williams to Sun Ra to
everyone.
Everyone. Yeah, and I mean, and at the same time trying to keep it together. No,
I mean, he told me. It's funny. He told me. Keeping it together is exactly it. But I mean, going on these road trips with Art Blakey, and Blakey's tying his drums to the top of the car, and they're falling off. You got to stop and pick them back up. But beyond the point is that, But with all that, it's like, as a non-musician though, getting so deep into the music, and that I say to myself, man, how do these guys? That's such an amazing high. And then how do you come down from that? You have to balance that, and that balance is where the adversity comes in. I didn't mean to break you off on that. It's just
I think you're portraying it from my limited experience, my understanding. You're portraying it very accurately. I sometimes think about this. Like I said, it's something that really interests me because in a way, it seems like we create a bubble of our version of utopia. You know, I mean, if you have a vision of what you want the music to feel like, that vision has to somehow be realized at first somehow in a vacuum, because, you know, it's a vision. It's not
right.
real.
That's right.
You know, and that's why we say we want to realize our vision. So how do you nurture that, and how do you sustain that? The adversity that you're referring to, that we're talking about, this is about everybody's lives, not just musicians. I mean, you know, I have 2 young daughters.
Me too.
And yeah. It's amazing. And on the one hand, it's really about sharing joy and being really, really, for me, you know, for being really, really open with them. And part of that is, hey, life isn't easy. It's not easy. I mean, that sounds like kind of a pedestrian truism, but it's not. And on the one hand, you want to learn how to not make things harder for yourself and for others. On the other hand, you want to learn how not to run away from the adversity, because what I've found is that the fruit lies at the other side. And you can't really circumvent. Again, that doesn't mean that you should be silly and harm yourself for the sake of, you know, creating some kind of depth.
Right.
I think that's jive. I don't think that works. And God knows, so many of us have spent at least part of our time doing that. Maybe we all do sometimes. Certainly there's a lot of stories of musicians that, you know, thought they could get deep by getting high. But ultimately, I think learning how to relax and open up your heart in the middle of that, that's the key. A great Tibetan Buddhist teacher who became very popular in the West, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, you know, would always point out that compassion and wisdom is born of a broken heart. And I don't think he was saying that, well, you need to be sad and teary-eyed to get closer with people, or to get closer with, in quotation marks, the truth. I think what he's talking about is another way to experience that, you know, giving up, that opening up, that giving over, that letting go, you know?
I love it. I love it. No, I mean, I also think that, you know, for my daughters, like you said, you don't want to go out of your way to hurt yourself or make things harder. In fact, that's not authentic. But just through natural life occurrences, I don't think there's anything more powerful than your kids watching you work things out, struggle, you know, struggle and perform and thrive, even if they don't get it. And they might even ridicule you. They might even get down on you. But that is how you let go. In my mind, that's how we're speaking the same language here. So, I mean, it's just, to me, that as a non-musician, as a journalist, but as somebody who's a young father, I mean, I know my kids have had a profound effect on me opening up. I mean, I got people in the studio here, they're like, you know, they're having a ball, but I couldn't have done this before I had kids. And they changed me completely. Because and then also through life events, seeing their dad being challenged, facing adversity, not necessarily seeing how I overcame it because they're too young, but knowing I did overcome it, it changes the whole thing, and then it makes you strong. Anyway, that was my...
You know, there's something profoundly interesting to me in what you just said, and so clear. I think that my kids, it's what I observe, what I understand. they learn more about how I deal with things, deal with myself, again in quotation marks, and deal with adversity, deal with positive situations as well, how I deal, than they do from what I purposefully try to teach them.
Right.
I think they learn more by observing and feeling, observing in the big sense. I don't mean just with their eyes, kind of how I'm dealing with my life experience, than by our conversations, let's say. And the same is true in playing music with other people. If you have the opportunity to play with musicians that you feel are really great, people that you have admired and that you want to get next to and that you really want to learn from, playing with them, I think that I've learned more by feeling how they're dealing than I have with asking them questions or even trying to figure out kind of technically what they're doing.
Exactly.
And so that's, that goes back to one of the earlier things that you brought up, the experience of playing together and playing together a lot of times. I think that's the ideal, is that you have people that you're really developing with, because you learn from each other's metamorphosis. You learn from the actual mechanics of evolution. I think those lessons are deeper than learning about any of the technical things that are going on, or
right.
even the
No, I mean it's so there.
It's very profound.
Yeah.
It's like magic. So it's the same as a relationship, right? I mean it's one thing to commit yourself to being with a spouse or being with a family and talking about problems, and that can really help. But it's another thing to really kind of feel how each other is going through the metamorphosis of kind of evolving through the good things and bad things that come up, I think it's on a deeper level. And that's how I try to learn by listening to music. It's more on a level of how does this make me feel? How does it change me? And then trying to learn how it works. How does that actually happen? How can I achieve that with the tools that I have at hand? Hope I'm not getting off the topic. I'm just
this is what my show is about. I mean, if you were veering off somewhere, I would have put you back on course. But you're doing.
Thanks.
Just Franklyn, this is just part one. But as we wrap up, I wanted to ask you about your concept of love, and also the love that you and Pharoah Sanders express on the bandstand together.
Thanks for asking. I think well, no, because it's like the questions that open up the research, that
right.
open up the reflection. So that's great. You need to ask the right questions to try to find the right answers. I think that when people relax and really open up and really let go of the concepts that are trying to define, and in that definition remove one from kind of what we say being present. I think when people relax that and open up, I think love is just what we call what is spontaneously experienced.
Right.
I think love is you know, at the risk of sounding kind of like a hippie or new age or something. I think love is what's left over when you kind of like let go of the other stuff. And certainly now, looking back as a grown up, if I look back at the music, no matter where it was coming from, no matter who did it, if I look back at the music that really moved me, it's that love that really moved me. And that love only happened after spending my life trying to understand how it works and trying to find my own way to do it. That love only shows itself when you relax and open up. Pharoah Sanders is one of the greatest living proponents and examples of somebody that has spent his life practicing opening up and letting go in that way, and has achieved a rare level of communication. And when I say communication, I just mean that openness. And I think what gets communicated is love. You know, I just think that's it's like you say when you look at kids. You know, you can see that so easily. It's only because they're not held back,
right,
that it's so easy for them to share and communicate and create an environment of love. So I think that's the greatest. You know, John Coltrane, I mean, it's that feeling. Aside from being, you know, a lot of people can relate with his saxophone playing because in a technical way, because he is so incredibly advanced and so skilled. But that's not what really reaches people. It's so profoundly loving. It's so on fire. It's heart fire. You know, Tisziji, Tisziji Munoz, the guitar player that you started speaking about. He likes saying that. You know, heart fire.
Heart fire love. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Hey, you know, Franklyn, listen, man. Well, this was better than I would have ever dreamed. I mean, it was more psychology than anything else. But we'll connect for part 2, brother, man. And you enjoy the rest of your evening. And thank you for taking the time here on Power Talk 1210.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Jake, and you have a good evening, too.
All right, brother. We'll talk to you soon. We'll be right back.